I'm barely in it.
Hi,
Hi, I'm Matt,
I'm Dina. And the Spookies.
and you are sitting with the Schmoopies.
Woo! First episode 1. So we just did our first ever live event yesterday, and we had some questions that people asked us, and we thought maybe we would answer just a couple of those before we get into our main topic today on being alone. You are not alone. Matt, one of the first questions that was asked is, what did you mean by you were like on a high during the day, and let's not go into low. What did you mean by like you were on a high during the day?
What I meant was, when something dramatic happens,
We're in hurricane wind in South Dakota.
when something traumatic happens, your body automatically produces adrenaline. And during the day, starting in the morning, usually after about an hour of waking up, I could feel the adrenaline start to flow. I just wanted to be in your presence and talk and do things and go to the park and go to the store and write and create with you. And we never had that level of connection. In 35 years of marriage, there were brief moments during that time, during our marriage, where we had a level of connection, but not to this extent. It was I would say it was an adrenaline produced state of euphoria, where I felt like our friendship was cementing. And we talked about dark things, but we also talked about amazing things that we were both wanting to do. And that continued that adrenaline and that endorphin flow throughout the day. And as the night slowly crept up, as the hours went by, 5, 6, 7 o'clock, I started to feel that dissipate, because I knew you'd be going to bed and I would soon be alone with my thoughts, with no way to express them or convey them anymore, because I need another person to mirror me, to reflect me, and to share that rush with me. How did you feel during this time?
I guess during the day, yeah, I was like you. I felt like we had shifted into a whole new reality. Like we were living in a whole completely different timeline. And I knew that, like in Omaha, that was the realization that I had, is that we were going to be in the highest and best timeline for all. And it felt like that's really literally what we connected to. We connected to that amazing timeline where we were connected, intimate, relational, like exposed and expressing each other, ourselves, and it was just really, really cool. Finally, really talking about vision, talking about our hopes and our dreams, planning, not just talking about them, but planning, thinking about it. How is it going to look? How does it feel? Just really finally felt for the first time that we were really, really, truly there. We had a little bit of that in 2015, but not to this extent. And a lot of that was just simply for me, because I no longer had a mask on. I no longer felt like I needed to protect anything, that I needed to hold anything back, that I needed to not say something. I felt extremely open and vulnerable and safe, and like I just trusted fully the process, even though at nighttime sometimes were, like you explained, hell. And as high as we were during the day, sometimes as connected and intimate as we were during the day, like a pendulum. One as high as we could get was feels like the other side is as low as we could get, and it was just like extreme polar opposites. But like all pendulums, really, as we got lower and lower, the dramatic shifts started to level out, I feel like. And what I feel like we leveled out into was more into the positive side, and just experiencing the connection and the intimacy and the relationship, and the spirals that we, because we still have disagreements, we still get triggered, things still happen, but they're so manageable now. They're so manageable.
And to take an overview of it, we got married in 1991. I was 18. You had just turned 21. But then you look at a relationship, or you look at your life, there's pivotal key moments. And I could point to 1997
Mm-hmm.
was a key
Yeah.
key year for us. 2008 was a key year. 2015.
Yeah.
2015, I thought at the time when you're in the middle of it, we had a traumatic event happen. So each one of those years, there was a traumatic event that happened. And by 2015, we connected. We majorly really connected in 2015, or so I thought.
Yeah.
But at the time, it felt like this is us now. This is what we've been waiting for. I've been waiting for you. You've been waiting for me. We finally both stepped up and stepped into the relationship, into the marriage. 10 years later, looking back at that now, the traumatic event that happened in 2015 was peanuts compared to what was just revealed this year. So everybody, that when you have a traumatic event and you're married or you're in a long-term relationship, you can react in several different ways. You can grow apart after this event happens, or you can become one after this event happens. The choice is yours. The choice was Dina's. She didn't have to react the way she did. I didn't have to react the way I did. But you have to choose, and you have to be diligent. And it's not fun sometimes. It's not fun. Separating, divorcing was an option. That would not have been fun.
Right.
Staying together has not been easy. Sometimes it's not fun. Sometimes it's extremely painful and challenging. But once you make that decision to get through that and stay together and get through it together, that's where the clinging to each other happened. Once I decided to stay with her, once she had decided to stay with me, her and I both go all in with our decisions. There's no half-assing it. There's no, oh, maybe I shouldn't, maybe I won't. It's just all in. And I'm not saying that there were times where we second-guessed our decisions. There were, for both of us.
A lot.
But with that adrenaline, you kind of have to look at that in the big picture as, okay, am I making these decisions just based on adrenaline and endorphin rush and cortisol? Do you try to calm yourself down enough to remove yourself from the emotion and make a decision? And you try as best you can. And once that rush wears off, you want to feel like, yes, I made the right decision. You don't want to have that rush wear off and just totally regret it. So you really have to kind of think into the future. How am I going to feel? How is our marriage going to be when our newlywed phase wears off? Because it's all fun and games and exciting, and you're like a couple of teenagers in that newlywed phase. But you have to project out a couple years and picture yourself waking up in bed after a year or 2 years or 5 years of marriage, and how are you going to feel? How do you want to feel? And then work towards that feeling. So when this traumatic event happened, for me, it was like rediscovering a new person.
Two people, yourself.
Myself and you. And that's a big key. You can't truly love somebody else unless you love yourself. You may think you can, but that's not true unconditional love. You can't hate yourself and love somebody else unconditionally at the same time. It's impossible. You can do your best and think that you're giving love, but the other person picks up on that. And it's not a healthy way to have a relationship. But it kind of works both ways. When you're able to love somebody else, that gives you confidence in yourself. Because loving somebody through hard times is one of the most challenging things you could ever go through in your life. When somebody's at the pit of hell and you stand by them and love them, you have to pull that up. You have to pull that out of yourself. And her and I both did that for several months. We stood by each other when we were at our lowest points. And it's hard. It doesn't. You don't just snap your fingers and it happens. You have to be determined to work your way through it. And I could do that during the day when we were together. That was easy. Nighttime, when I'm alone with my own thoughts and I have nobody to bounce those thoughts off of, there's no outlet. They just bounce around in my head. And it drove me. I thought I was going insane. But you just keep going. You keep going. And you try to remove any negative habits that you have that are impeding that healing and that growth. And eventually I did. But for a while, I didn't. For a while, I relied on some really dark spirits. What about you? Did you change any of your habits as we were going through that?
One of the things I really learned in that time period was hardcore how to hold space. How to hold space and not get triggered when you were triggered. That was really hard for me. A lot of times, and that's how people fight, honestly, is that idea that something triggers one of you and you're triggered, and then you react to the other person, and then you push their trigger button, and then they get triggered. And I found that like most of our marriage, we did the trigger dance. You'd get triggered or I'd get triggered, and then we'd trigger the other person, and then you'd trigger it back, and you'd react in that way. And so that was probably the biggest lesson that I had to learn through this, was to literally hold space. This is not about me. This is him, and processing, and give you the space to process whatever you needed to process. and not make it about me. Because if I made it about me, then I reacted, then I pushed back, and it doesn't work that way. It absolutely does not work that way. One of you has to take a deep breath. And so I learned, I did a lot of breathing exercises. I did a lot of centering myself. I did a lot of holding my own space, and so that I didn't spiral with you. I wasn't perfect, because there was still a lot of times I spiraled. I got sucked into his spiral. But I found that the times I didn't get sucked into the spiral, it would be a lot shorter. And the times I didn't get sucked in at all, the spiral, the processing was a lot shorter. It was quickened by me not entering into it. I think that's the thing I wanted to say about unconditional love, though, is you don't know what unconditional love is until you have conditions on love. That's how we learn what unconditional love is. You have to have conditions, right? Otherwise, it's love. But you don't really fully know. You don't really fully know how much you can love. How much you can love, period. It's not even about how much you can love somebody else. You don't know how fully you can love until you're given conditions in which you have to love through. And I feel like that has been a journey for my entire lifetime. I have been gifted a lot of conditions in which I needed to rise to the force of love and anchor into love, and allow love to conquer. Love conquers all, right? I needed to learn to allow love to conquer all of it, every condition that I've met. And I feel like I'm getting there. I'm not quite Jesus, but you know, I feel like I'm getting it. The message is quite clear to me. It's like I'm always going to be given lessons, conditions in this lifetime for me to overcome, so that I can continue to learn what unconditional love really is, and practice unconditional love.
Well, I believe that every trauma that happens, you go through a grieving process. You're basically grieving the loss of something, whether it's a death or infidelity or a divorce or your house burns down.
You
move, you lose your job. You're grieving the loss of something that you loved, that you enjoyed, that you wanted. Now you no longer have that thing, and you go through stages, whether you want to or not. It's just human nature to grieve the loss of things that you've grown attached to, that you've grown accustomed to, that you've grown comfortable with, that you've grown to love, that you've grown to enjoy. And most of the time you can never get that back. And it's a hard thing to accept. And I definitely went through stages. When the truth came out for us about something that had happened, my initial stage was shock. I was in shock. I did not want to accept it. I thought I was living a nightmare. Like, this isn't me. This isn't real. This is not happening. This is a different dimension. I need to just go back to the way I was. Just let me go back there where there's comfort and safety. I just want to go home. This can't be happening. after a few days, that shock started to wear off a bit. And it would be like when you have surgery and they give you anesthesia. Let's say you have a tooth pulled. They give you anesthesia. They pull that tooth. It doesn't necessarily hurt as they're pulling it because you're numb. You can feel the pressure. You can definitely feel the pressure. You know what's going on. But it doesn't hurt. Boy, when you come home though, after a few hours and that Novocaine starts wearing off, you want to just scream in pain. You want to scream that pain out of you. And it doesn't work like that.
Mm-hmm.
So what do? You find other ways. So now your initial reaction is to numb it again on your own. Obviously, you don't have any Novocaine. You don't have any anesthesia that the doctor or the surgeons gave you. So you find other ways. Alcohol, drugs, prescription medication, TV. Yeah, just anything you can find to distract from that pain that is now throbbing and shooting waves throughout your body. I turned to alcohol to numb it. And I justified that by saying that alcohol would help me cope with what had just transpired. In effect, it had the opposite effect. Sure, initially it helped me focus more, but then it just takes over. Alcohol becomes your soul, it feels like. And it just takes over and it has the reverse effect of what you wanted. All it does is amplify all these dark, negative thoughts that you're having and these images. It just keeps bringing them up over and over and over. So when I was with her during the day, it really wasn't like that. I could focus on her in the present. But when she went to sleep at night and I was up, then I was focusing on her in the past. And all alcohol would do was just keep bringing up memories, bringing up that time frame, just kept bringing it up. What was I doing? What was she doing? How was I feeling? What was going on? And I would analyze this year and a half, and I would scrutinize it, just every little detail. What could I have done different? What could she have done different? And I started blaming it all on me. And then obviously alcohol just intensifies those negative feelings. Maybe for some people alcohol intensifies positive feelings. I don't think I've ever really seen that. Maybe it does initially, but over time, it's like a dark spirit that came into me and started, Matt, remember this? How could you do this, Matt? How could you let her do this? How could you allow this to happen? Over night after night after night after night after night. And then I'd wake up the next morning and there was a lot of times I couldn't even remember what had happened the night before.
Mm-hmm.
That's not good. That is not good.
You're talking about the grieving process.
So when you're grieving that loss. And once you go through the stages between shock and denial and depression, anger, ultimately winds up with acceptance. But there's another step after acceptance. And it's unconditional love. You can accept that something happened and move on with your life. But do you really accept it? If you still hold any resentment towards the person that hurt you or the thing that happened that hurt you, you need to accept it and forgive it and release that pain and anger and love unconditionally. First yourself, and then whatever that external source was that caused you so much pain. Otherwise, you will go to your grave miserable, victim mode, mm-hmm. and it will affect everything you do for the rest of your life. Right. Everything. Right. Consciously and subconsciously. Right. Have you found that with things that have happened that you need to...
For sure. Oh yeah. I mean, and things that most people would be, that's unconscionable that you could forgive that. I believe me, it's been never never easy. But I realize that, there's a scripture that says, "Guard your heart against all bitterness." And bottom line, that's the key to guarding your heart against all bitterness, is to absolutely forgive and love. And it's hard to love some people that really do you dirty, It's hard to love them. And you know who I'm talking about specifically. And I don't want to bring that up here. But, you had a really great analogy with the getting your teeth pulled and stuff like that. That reminds me of another question, another thing that's not everybody was like, when did this happen? Because this experience for us is super recent. We're talking Labor Day weekend, Memorial Day weekend. So June, the end of May, the beginning of June is when the truth was revealed. And so it's literally been this summer that we've been going through this, and everybody's like, how could you, number one, process all this so quickly and then do an event and speak in public about what you did? And I think the analogy that I came to the best was like, but take it from getting a tooth pulled. The more often you clean that tooth wound, the faster it heals, right? If you just leave the same muddy, dirty, bloody gauze in there, you could eventually get an infection in there. But the key is to pull it out and let it heal, right? Continue to swish it with salt water, continue to replace the Band-Aids. It's cleaning it. So the more you actually cleanse it. And so that's what we found, was we were able to work through this so much quicker, because we decided we were going to speak about it. And I really believe, like, somebody asked me the other day, like, why did you decide to do that? I don't think it was my decision. The idea came to us, and we just like, yeah, let's do that. And we were in a really high. We were in a high space when we said that. Yeah, let's do that. And then so many times we questioned whether or not that was smart. We were like, what the hell are we doing? Because it was hard. It was really, 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 really hard. But on the other side of it, what I saw, and I don't know about you, because you went through a lot more of the surgery, if you would. Do you feel like actually doing this event really helped you to heal faster?
Yeah, neither one of us have ever tried or used conventional therapy, conventional counselors, anything that is the norm when something happens in your life that you feel that you can't get through on your own. And we have basically just gone through everything either on our own or with each other's support. I mean, we weren't terrible to each other most of our marriage, but just never really had that partnership. So when this happened, there were nights where I legitimately was at the point where I wanted to go to the hospital and, basically get on medication. But I had a voice in me going, that's like throwing a Band-Aid on a broken leg. That's not going to do anything. That's not going to do anything. You have to heal that broken leg so it doesn't affect you for the rest of your life. You can just lay on the couch and let it heal, and it would probably technically heal. But you're never you're never going to be able to walk normally again. You're never going to be able to dance again if you do that. You have to be diligent about healing that wound. And for me personally, I've had a lot of experience with medication, and it may work initially, but over the long term, to me, the risks were far greater than the reward would have been. So when Dina decided to come up with this, when you had this idea to do this event, my initial thought was, yeah, I could do that. I could get up and tell my life story. We could tell our life stories together, about our marriage. But she wanted to, you really wanted to pinpoint it down and focus on what just happened. And at first, I'm like, are you freaking out of your mind? There's no way. I'm just starting the healing process. I just decided to start the healing process instead of leaving and separating. And now you want me to get up in front of a group of people, my friends and strangers, and talk about this? People will laugh. People will be in shock. They'll judge me. It'll be embarrassing. I'll be humiliated. I don't like being humiliated. Well, nobody does. But I particularly don't like being humiliated. And when the truth came out, that's one of the first feelings that I got was humiliation. I felt just so little and so weak, like I totally failed at this too. So to get up in front and talk to people and tell this in front of people, but I had some time to process it, and I agreed, okay, let's do it. So for 2 months, basically from June and July, that was the two most hellish months of my entire life, by far, not even close. But starting in August, I started to come around, and we spent the majority of our time talking about this, talking about what happened, talking about how we reacted, talking about how you came to the decision to reveal the truth. Just talking about that year, 2015, 2016, how it led up to that. It just, every possible thing that surrounded that whole event. And then we added on to that the drinking that I turned to. I was drinking before that, but not to the level that it turned into. And I realized at one point, when this was going on, when we were talking about this, trying to create the speech, wow, I'm really doing the same thing to her what she did to me. Like, who am I to judge her when I'm doing the same thing? Now, the actions weren't the exact same, but the behavior was. The behavior was the exact same. And once I realized that, my perception of the whole thing changed. But talking about this every day and writing and creating and laughing and crying, when you can cry with your spouse and it doesn't trigger them, that's a big step in a relationship. When you're vulnerable enough to show them your lowest moments, and they sit there and they just love you back, and it doesn't turn into this huge argument or a fight or blame or victim mode. Mm-hmm. Wow. We can help you get to that point, because that's a major step in a relationship. It's so easy to be happy and lovey when you're on vacation, or times are good, when there's no stress, when you got plenty of money in the bank. Those are so easy times to ride that high level of, but when one of you gets low or both of you get low, that's when shit hits a fan, and you'll find out if your relationship is what it's built on. And we found that out over the course of the couple months creating this event. So for me, it was therapy. For me, it was actual physical, spiritual, emotional therapy for me. And I didn't realize it at the time. But now that I look back, I'm like, oh, wow. I can't believe that even happened. That I went through that. Like, instead of paying somebody hundreds of dollars or thousands of dollars and a stranger who doesn't know your situation, they only know what you tell them. Well, Dina and I know each other's situation about as well as any two beings can. And we still love each other. We still love our flaws and our mistakes and our struggles. That's what a real relationship is built on. And I found that out in the last couple months. What about you? What was revealed for you over the course of creating this event?
Well, yeah, I definitely our ability to actually do something together through, you know, we've done other things together, but to heal together and to bond together and to you know, I think one of the things for me was in the talking and talking and talking and talking and talking and talking and talking about it. Again, me learning to hold space, me learning to allow the process, but also me learning to be vulnerable. Me learning to be vulnerable. Me crying. me sharing how I was feeling at different times, you know, how I felt scared and how I felt really fearful. I mean, there was some times where I felt really afraid, you know, fear, massive fear of judgment, massive fear of that. And it was just so, I don't know, because I don't cry a lot at all. And I don't know if it's because I'm an Aquarius or just because I learned not to, you know, crying. Who has time to cry? Crying, you know, if you don't let them see you cry because it'll make you, they'll think you're weak. And so I was trained not to cry. I was trained not to show that at all. Matt's kind of the opposite. And so we kind of had that juxtaposition there. But I learned that he was safe to share that with, you know, open the vault, if you would, and share those fears, share those struggles with, and not just past struggles, but now things that are going on now, things that I'm thinking about now, and how good he is at holding space and being able to hear and not judge and not try to fix it, you know, because that's a thing. A lot of times when our partner or somebody is hurting, we want to fix it for them. It's a big thing for me too. I had to learn just to allow you to process things and not trying to fix it. Yeah, I'd say there's a lot of stuff that we learned. That we're almost at 40 minutes here, so I want to keep this, you know, listenable to people. So, is there anything else you feel like we need to say to wrap it up, or this first session up?
Yeah, when you make that decision to be honest, to be raw and honest, you're making a decision to be yourself, your authentic self, because you can't, I think it's impossible to have lies and deception, because we weren't created to do that. We were created to be honest and loving and respectful. And when you make that decision, you're going to start that journey of finding yourself again, that I believe we were all born with. And it works. The flip side of that is, when you're open and honest, you can't have any expectations of how the person you love is going to react. You have to learn how to respect them. Whether you may say you respect them right now, and maybe you do, but when you start being real and honest, the real respect is going to be not having any expectations of how they're going to react. They're a sovereign being. Your partner, your spouse, is a sovereign being. They can react and express emotionally whatever they want. Once it comes out of your mouth, once that truth comes out of your mouth, it's not yours anymore.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to receive it however they choose to receive it. And I do say, once that truth comes out, though, it's very important that you hold space. And holding space, to me, is respect. You have to respect your partner no matter how they react and no matter how they receive that truth. You have to respect them. And that's very important. If you can drop the truth on them and then get upset with them because they reacted negatively or they reacted in a way that you didn't want them to, you've already created that expectation. You cannot have an expectation. You can hope, but you can't expect them. Because now you're trying to control them. And expectation means control. And you don't want to control. You want to love and respect.
Well, I think part of that too, though, is also recognizing that their reaction doesn't mean anything about you. Their reaction is them. It's their reaction. And that was the key for me, is to knowing that whatever you said and did was not a reflection on me. It did not mean anything about me, because I was now fully rooted and grounded in complete unconditional love by myself, by Creator. It didn't matter. It didn't matter what he thought or said at that point, because I was sovereign. And that, and that's that part, is like that expectation. There is no expectation on you. The only reason we have an expectation of somebody else is because we're afraid of what it makes it mean about us. We're afraid of the reflection. And the key is to not get your reflection from that other person, but get your reflection from something higher.
So stay tuned, guys, for our next video. We'll be talking about a different matter, a different subject. It's always going to be exciting. It's always going to be interesting and inspirational. So watch for it. Thanks a lot. See you later.
Bye.